Hello again everyone, picking up right where we left off last time. Our bottom sheet currently just has a placeholder text. In this video, we're going to focus on building the actual UI for the bottom sheet, allowing users to input data into our system, so let's just get started. So to give you a preview of what we're actually aiming to create in this video is this awesome bottom sheet. We have a dismiss button here for easy navigation. We have an animated emoji-like image and the prompt questions to engage the users. This section will act like a hero area, similar to a website's main feature. Next, we have a text area where a user can write down their thoughts. And finally, a rating selector, allowing users to rate how they felt on that day. So we have from 1 to 5. So with this UI in mind, let's try to build this in our code. First thing first, if we go to our home view and then go to our sheet content view, we can see that we have this placeholder here. We don't want to have that. We want to create a custom UI for this. And in order to keep things clean, we want to add this new content in our components folder right here. So let's go ahead and create that. New file from template, Swift UI view. Next, let's just call this add journal entry view. Hit create. Everything should work just fine. Let's change this hello world with this text. Now if we go back to the home view and instead of having this text here, let's just replace this with our custom view, add journal entry view. Now if we hit plus, you can see our new text from this new component view. Now let's go back to the add journal entry view component. And the first thing that we want to do is to simulate that bottom sheet that we just saw on the home page. So in order to do that, let's first add the background color that we have in our project. So this tag with an app color theme.background color.ignore safe area. And on this app color, let's add a sheet modifier. This presented, it needs a binding bool, but since we are in preview, we are just gonna hardcode a true value. True. And for the content, we're gonna add our view. And there you go, you have a bottom sheet, but we need to make it medium. So for that, we're gonna use presentation detents, an array with .medium. We're gonna also add a drag indicator, presentation drag indicator visibility.visible, presentation background, thin material. And as you can see, it's really similar with what we had on the homepage. But this is the beauty of using this preview macro. We don't need to keep going back to the home view to check that our UI is built correctly. We simulated the needed UI right here in this subcomponent view. This is really efficient and speeds up the development of the UI. Now, as for the main UI, we're structuring it into 4 key sections, stacked vertically. Initially, we'll lay them all out one below the other. Of course, this will result in compile time errors, since the content isn't fully defined yet. But don't worry, we'll tackle each section one at a time, resolving the errors and completing the UI step by step. So for that, we're going to use a VStack. So let's just type VStack. The first section is going to be the close button. It's going to have a vertical padding. The next one is going to be the hero section with the smiley image and the question. The next one is going to be the text field view. The last one is going to be the rating. And we're going to force all this UI to be pushed in the top section. As you can see, we have these errors because these variables are non-existent. So let's do what we always do. Create an extension, add journal entry view, and create the first view, the close button. And for the close button, we're going to use an H-stack, a spacer to push everything to the right or to the trailing edge. We're going to use a button for that. We're going to leave the action empty. And for the label, we're going to use an image, system image, of course, xmark.app. And we're going to use the title font for that. And the button is going to have the foreground style, the color, our own white. So obviously we can see the result. Let's just fix all the errors. Let's define the hero section. Let's just put a placeholder text. Let's copy this, paste it 2 more times, rename this with text field, and rename this with rating picker view. All the errors should disappear. We should see our X button. There you have it. At our VStack, just add an overall padding of 18, and we should be all set. So as you've seen, this X button does nothing yet. We need to make sure that when the user presses this X button, the bottom sheet is dismissed. So for that, we're going to introduce a new variable just like this at environment \dismiss private var dismiss. And what we want to do is call this once the button is pressed. So just call it here dismiss. Now, of course, we can't really test this behavior in this subcomponent view because we hard-coded the constant true here, so it will always be presented. But if we go back to the home view, make it visible, and now press X, and just like that, it was beautifully dismissed with a nice slide down animation. Now let's go ahead and create this hero section. I'm gonna start by implementing a stack view, spacing of 16. First element is gonna be an image. System name base.dashed.fill. We're gonna use the symbol rendering mode as palette. The reason for this is that we're gonna animate that smiley image. And in order to do that, we're gonna need to change the rendering mode to the palette option right here. This is a beautiful feature that SF Symbols provides for us. The foreground style is gonna be app color theme.accent color. So let's make it bigger. .font, .system with a size of 50, 52 should work just fine. Below this image is going to be that question. So a text with a question, how do you feel today? We're going to use our custom font. Title, I'm going to use bold, padding of bottom 16 should be right amount. A minimum scale factor of 0.8. A better explanation for this minimum scale factor is that basically when applied to a text, that view controls how small the text can shrink when it needs to fit within its available space. For example, if we set this to 0.8, what this does is that it allows the text to scale down to 80% of its original size if needed, ensuring that the text doesn't get clipped or overflow. Also, let's change the foreground color for this text. So foreground style, app color theme dot white color. Now we want to trigger an animation once the users trigger the visibility for this bottom sheet. So in order to do that, we're going to use a modifier called symbol effect. This option with effect options and value. Enter, type read options dot repeat for 2 seconds with a speed of 1.2. And for the value, we need a state variable. And we don't yet have that. So in order to create that, let's go at the top part of the view and just type state private var animations running of type bool equals false. And just paste that here, animation running. And as you see, nothing still happens because this boolean is not yet changed to true. We set it as a default to false, but someone or something needs to change this boolean to true. So for that, we're going to use the onAppear modifier. OnAppear, you're going to say animations running dot toggle. And look how beautiful this is. Since we are here, I just want to show you a really quick shortcut in Xcode that you can do to better format your code. So if you put your cursor right here and then you hold Control and hit the letter M, it's going to format it on new line for each element of this initializer. Next on our list is the text field view. For that, we're going to use a text field. As a placeholder, you're going to use nothing for now. The text needs to have a state variable to it. So exactly like for the animation, we need to create a state private var. Let's name it day details, type string, and this one is default empty. Now let's just pass that there. We need to write $day details. It needs to bind to that state variable. So any changes that we do on this text field, those text changes will reflect on this variable. For the prompt is basically like a custom placeholder. We're going to use the text details here. And for the style of the placeholder, we're going to use foreground style, app color theme dot white color. And we want to make it a bit grayish, so add an opacity of 0.5. Next, we're going to use an axis dot vertical. We want our text field to expand vertically. So again, let's use that shortcut, hit Control and M. And each one of them will be separated on a new line. It's a bit clearer for me. Now, obviously, this text looks like really bad. So let's add some styling to it. Just hit enter here. Let's add the foreground style, color theme dot white color. Let's add the font of custom font dot body. We're gonna use our Poppins font weight, semi-bold, padding all over the text field. Gonna put a line limit of 8 and reserve space to true. This is a really awesome feature that was added, I guess, in iOS 16 or something like that. You can check that out on the documentation. Yes, in iOS 16, this line limit with reserve space was added. What this reserve space does is it will basically do what it's called, resolve all the space for the text field in order to fit 8 lines. If we hit false, it will not reserve the space, and I think it will expand based on what the user types. So if we just type, yes, it will expand as the user types, but we need to reserve that space to create our beautiful UI. So let's type again true. As for the background, we need an app color theme background color, and we need to add some rounded corners. So clip shape, rounded rectangle with the corner radius of 16. And there we have it. So when the text that the user enters goes beyond 8 lines that we typed here, we're gonna have a scroll behavior. That's pretty cool. Next up is the rating speaker view, but as you see, we no longer have that much space left here. So for now, let's just hardcode this into a larger bottom sheet. Basically, the height is gonna be 600. Yeah, we have enough space. We're gonna discuss a bit later how we can make this height dynamical based on the content that this view has inside it. So for now, let's keep it this way and start creating our picker view. Start by creating a horizontal stack view with a spacing of 16, and the content is gonna be a spacer. We want to push the picker view at the far right side. Use a text, day rating, text case. You're gonna use uppercase. You're gonna make it bold and use our custom font, .callout, a smaller font size. Next, we're gonna use a menu with a label. And in the menu, we need to iterate over the options that we have for the day rating. So as you remember, we have from 1 to 5. But I really don't like to just declare some random options in this class. So for that, we're going to use our constants subfolder that is under the home feature. So let's just create a new file from template, Swift file, home constants. Here, we're going to create an enum called home constants, and the variable is going to be called well-being rating options. Type int, they're going to be from 1 to 5. Now we're going to take this variable and go back to the add journal entry view right here and iterate over all those options. So for each home constants.rating options, well-being rating options, id \self rating in, we're going to create a button, string rating. So what this button does is when pressed, it's going to change the selection of the rating that the user selected for that particular day. So for that, we're going to introduce a new variable at the top, at state private var rating selection, type int, and let's say the default is 3. So in the moment the user presses selection, we're going to change that rating selection with the current one. Our label is empty. So let's create that. We're going to use a text with a string format, an integer /5. Again, this is going to be dynamic, exactly like in a journal cell that we created in the previous video. And then this 5 is going to be hard-coded. And the dynamic value is going to be rating selection. And there you have it. The default one is 3 out of 5. Let's add some padding. Let's say 10. Make this bold. Add the background. We're going to use a rounded rectangle with the corner radius of 10. We're going to also fill that with our app color theme.background color. Also, let's add some top padding to this rating section. So below the H stack, just type padding.top. Now, if we go to the preview and try to select this day rating, we see that we have a menu popping out. It's a beautiful UI, it's simple, it's sleek. And for the amount of codes that we wrote, I say it's an awesome result. You would think that this is already done. And if you would stay in this view, you would be right. But if we go back to the home view and try to test the same behavior, if we hit plus, surprise, the content is clipped, goes under, is not visible, is ugly, and we don't want that. And this is exactly the topic that I want to cover in the next video. We'll dive into using custom modifiers and preference keys to make the view respond dynamically to its content. Right now, our presentation detent is set to medium, which is essentially hard-coded and doesn't adjust based on the content inside it. That's why we see these truncated views right here. So for that, please subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and stay tuned for the next video. Happy scribbling!